All right, it's 10 o'clock on my watch. So, to make sure that we use our time appropriately, I know that it is the summer. We have lots to do. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Chandler Jordan. I'm the program director of SC Economics. I am the one who sends you out all of the emails. Hopefully, you like them. I don't know. But I am here today with Chris Cannon. Chris is coming to us from the Georgia Council on Econ Ed. Chris has spent a lot of time teaching. He's been teaching since 2002. And he was the teacher in residence with the Georgia Council and then worked his way up to he is now the assistant director and chief program director. And so we're so glad to have Chris with us. If you were with us last week, Chris was on with his executive director, Mike. And Mike will be joining us again a little later in July. But we are so thankful to have Chris with us today. And I am just going to roll it over to you. Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Chandler. I appreciate that. And happy to be back. Thanks to SC Economics for having us back. All right, so you can see on the title slide there, our topic for today, we're going to talk about allocating scarce resources in general, and then we're going to do sort of a case study-ish kind of thing and apply it to COVID-19 in particular regarding medical equipment in particular. Couple of things before we get started here. One is we are going to be, in addition to Zoom, using a web browser. Chandler mentioned that to most of you, but a few people just joined. So at one point, I'm going to ask you to go to a Google Doc. I'll be giving you the address for that. So make sure you have something open where you can access that. If you don't, it doesn't ruin your experience or anything like that. Just as long as the majority of people have access to one, it'll provide us the data we need to do the things we need to do. And the other thing that we're going to do is a socrative. We're going to do a couple of those actually, and that's going to be at socrative.com. You do not need an account for either of those things. So when I send you to Socrative, you'll just log in as a student and you'll be in my classroom. So no accounts needed, and we should be good to go on all that kind of stuff there. The other thing I'll probably be using a good bit is the chat. So if you are, at this point, I don't think anybody is new to Zoom, but if for some reason you are, if it's the first time you've ever done it, try to find something like what you see on your screen there. You'll see, might be at the bottom, could be at the top, depending on how your screen is set up. But the little chat box itself is that thing has a name. I don't remember the name of it. Some journalism folks on here probably remember what that thing's called, but it's the white box with a little arrow coming out underneath it, like what you would see on somebody's like thought process or something like that. That's the chat box, and we'll be using that a couple of times as well. I'll just ask questions of the group and ask you to respond in the chat. So all that kind of stuff taken care of. Let's get started with content. This is definitely a full hour presentation for sure. I'm going to try and make it about 50 minutes. So I give Chandler time at the end to get her survey out and stuff like that. So about 11 or 12 years ago, the Georgia Council sort of created a version of this lesson we're going to do today. And it was just strictly based on allocation strategies. And at the time, the case study we used was the H1N1 scare that was happening at the time. And the general gist of the lesson is quite simple. We're not going to have enough resources to do what we want to do. And so we're going to have to allocate the ones we do have. And it turns out that there are at least 9 different ways to allocate that. We're going to try to replicate this lesson as best we can online. I've done this. This will be the 4th time I've done this, and it works pretty well, I think. It is designed, it was written and designed, of course, to be a classroom lesson. So several times I'll point out things that are limited online, that are hard to replicate, that you might want to try in the classroom. You are going to get this presentation. So if you see slides you like, or I've got a lot of links in here, a lot of links to South Carolina specific things later on. I will be sending this to Chandler and she will send it out to you at the end. And all the lesson plans I reference, all of the handouts that I reference, all the articles, everything is linked in this article. So in terms of, one of the things I always try to do wherever I'm consulting or whenever I'm working with teachers anywhere is to try to pre-answer the question, where would I teach this? Where does this show up in anything I'm supposed to do? And this lesson, honestly, is broad enough to where it can be worked in pretty much anywhere you're going to talk about any kind of scarce resources. So you could use this lesson in a world history course when you talk about why do people trade or explore. You could use it in a U.S. history, certainly an economics course, AP, whatever. It's a general allocation of strategies lesson. The content that we're going to use today is probably not super appropriate for elementary school children. You might have to change that up a little bit. However, the general topic of allocating scarce resources is super appropriate for kids. And in fact, your new standards that Chandler sent me hit on this in second grade. You have a section on allocating resources. It's for budgeting, but it's the same concept that we're going to do here in just a few minutes. There are these themes that run throughout the South Carolina standards that I picked up on several times, and many of them mention distribution of resources, or some of them use the phrase allocation. You see the word scarcity show up a lot in these. So it runs throughout, and I was happy to see that. Specifically in the high school economics course, of course, you've got this role of incentives, and it gets into how decisions are made at different levels of government as a result of scarce resources. And then boom, right out the gate here, this EPF1 ER, examine how scarcity of time and resources necessitates decision making. So that's sort of where it shows up, and that's what we're going to do. The lesson breakdown is as simple as this. We're going to do right at the beginning here, we're going to do something you could do at any grade level. I've done this with 8th graders. I've done it with high schoolers. I've done it with college students, done it countless times at workshops. Doesn't really seem to matter the age group. I have colleagues who've done this with 4th graders. So we're going to do this thing called a stranded scenario. Just get the concept across. I'll talk a little bit about a homework thing that I usually assign my students, and then I will apply it to real life. So we're basically going to build the lesson in terms of cognitive level as we go. So start off with a very simple abstract identifying kind of thing, like what in the world does allocation mean? We're going to work up to some examples, some pros and cons, apply it, and then ultimately we'll evaluate. So the lesson plan link is here. We're going to skip over that. You don't need to click on that or do anything with that right now. Just know that it's here. So if you're like, how in the world did we do that? You have access to the lesson once you get this PowerPoint. All right, let's roll. So you are now my students. You are in my classroom, and I'm going to sort of work off that motif, if you don't mind. So I'm going to teach you like I would teach my students. That's how we usually do it at the Georgia Council. And that helps you see what your role would be when things are reversed and you are playing me with your students. So good news, students. I have procured some funding, believe it or not, and I am able to take the class on a field trip. Woo-hoo, we're going to go on a field trip. And I'm going to take everybody out to the West Coast. So we're all going to go here. So that'll be fun. We'll hop on an airplane or bus or whatever's safe nowadays. Maybe nothing. I don't know. But we're all going to get out to the West Coast somehow. Drive yourself, I guess. And we're all going to pile into this boat, all tested for COVID and all that kind of stuff. So we're all good to go. We can hang out. The 52 of us on this call, we're all good together. So let's just roll with that idea for a moment. So we all get into this boat, right? Everybody on board? We're all on the boat. Good. Somebody says, hey, do we have a map? Nah, we don't have a map. We don't take a map with us because who knows how to read a nautical map anyway. And we've all got our phones, of course. And surely the driver of the boat knows what he's doing. So we're just going to get on the boat without a map, and we're going to head here. And this is Econ Island. And I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about economics on this island. I always say, if I ever had to go to an island and bring 10 lessons with me to teach economics, well, this is the island. And this is one of the lessons, incidentally, that would be in that 10. So we're heading out there, things are going great, and then all of a sudden, this happens. Yeah, ooh, that's unfortunate. And that's the same boat from the other pictures, different angle. And when this happens, you can tell that that's going to sink fairly quickly. So everybody sort of goes into panic mode. The first thing you, of course, do when you're in panic mode is check your phone, right? That's what everybody does nowadays. Nobody has service. Nobody, not even you Verizon people. Nobody out there has service. We just have a bunch of electronic bricks in our hand. And you guys all start freaking out. I mean, just freaking out completely, to the point where even those of you who can swim can't swim, right? You're just like, I can't, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So I have to work really hard to get all 53 of you, well, 52 of you, because I'm one of the people on the call. I have to work really hard to get all 52 of you to shore. And I'm worn out, but you're welcome. That saved your life, all 52 of your lives. And I look back at the boat, and I do this crazy mathematical calculation, and I've determined I can get back to the boat and get back in order to save 5 items from the boat. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not 6, not 7, not 4, not 12, 5. Okay? So what's going to happen on this next slide is I'm about to show you a list of the things that I know where they are on the boat. What I'm going to ask you to do in just a minute is pick the 5 things you would like for me to save. Now, since there are 52 of you, that would be very time consuming to try to let everybody do that on their own. So I'm going to break you into groups. All right. And the way we're going to do this on the Zoom here is I'm going to send you to what's called a breakout room. So in just a moment, you're going to get an alert. It'll show up on your screen, and it'll say you have been invited to join breakout group number whatever. And you'll just click join, and you'll actually leave this meeting, and you'll go into a separate room with 4 or 5 other people. Okay, some of you have probably used that feature before, but that'll be new for some people because breakout rooms aren't necessarily all that common. So when you're in your breakout group, your task is going to be quite simple. Pick 5 things off the list that I'm about to show you and write your 5 things on a Google Doc that I'm going to send you the link to. So here's the list of stuff I can swim to get. Then nothing else. There's nothing else. So you can't say, hey, Cannon, could you also grab the whatever, you know, I know I could grab the captain's hat or something. I don't know where that is. These are the only things I know where they are. Now let's recap here. We're in the middle of the Pacific. We're on an island that nobody knows about. It's Econ Island. Only I know about it. Nobody else knows about it. I don't know how long we're going to be there. And there's 52 of us on this island. And I can get 5 of these things off the island. Okay. So and this slide also shows up on the Google Doc on the page I'm about to send you to. So, oops, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take this link here and throw it in the chat box if you want to just click on it. So in your chat box, you should be able to click that link, and that will take you to this Google Doc here. And what you need to do once you're on that link is find the page number, I'm sorry, the slide number that matches the group you're about to be assigned. So don't type in anything yet. Don't type anything yet because you don't know what group number you're about to be in. So I'm going to go ahead and assign those groups now. So again, your task, just want to make sure everybody's on board here. You're about to get an invitation to join a group. Once you're in that group, talk amongst yourself, and you're going to get about like 3-ish minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, no more than that. Decide what 5 things your group would like. If you're in group 2, then on slide 2 of this group, for example, you would list your 5 things. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Nothing fancy. Okay. And a lot of people, if nobody in the group has access to the Google Doc, and only one person needs it, but if nobody in the group has access to the Google Doc, there's an option for you to like raise your hand or let me know. And you can either put it in the chat box or just write it down and you can tell me when we get back. So without further ado, I am sending you to your breakout rooms here. Let me make it to where there's about 3 or 4 of you per room. Boom, and go. You should be getting your invitation to join your breakout rooms now. I'll see you back here in just a bit. Okay, I think we're all back. Awesome. Excellent. Fantastic work. One thing I realized about 5 or 6 minutes in there is, I'm sorry, about 2 or 3 minutes in there was apparently somebody had gone in and got rid of group 10. The last time I did this, I thought I checked that and I thought it was clear. So group 10 didn't actually have a slide to put their stuff on. I apologize for that. Okay. So I'm not going to pull everybody's over. Let me explain the next procedure for you. Again, all of these procedures are in the lesson plan link that comes out of this. Oh, thank you, L. Parks. I appreciate that. So in the classroom, the better way to do this is you've got the students spread out into their groups. And I normally don't do more than groups of 3. You want at least 5 to 7, 8 groups if you can get them. And you'll see why in just a second. You want to try to get the most varied list of possibilities you can. In class, I usually walk around, and if you have a wide erase board, and I give the students the marker, I'm like, once I see they're getting close to their list, I'm like, go put your 5 things on the board, go put your 5 things on the board. And ultimately, you're going to get some duplicates. So I have a sampling here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 10 groups on the page here. And I would put all of them up here, but that would take too much time, and I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time here. But you get the idea, right? So you get everybody's list on the board. You've got some duplicates. So the first thing you want to do is sort of get rid of some of these duplicates. Like I've got medical kit up here multiple times, so I can get rid of that. What I'm trying to do is get to the unique items. So I want to see how many unique items I have. Water probably shows up a lot. I'm assuming that's the containers of water there. Swiss Army knife, there it is again. We'll get rid of that. And rope was up here again somewhere. And this takes just a second. The more you do the lesson, the quicker you get at this. Oh, there's the rope again. All right. And oh, there's rope again. We all really like rope over there. All right. So we're going to make sure we have that rope. Anybody see any other duplicates? You can type them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and call them out. Oh, the container. All right. So one thing that happens sometimes is sometimes in entire groups, stuff will get removed, and that's okay. That's okay. Oh yeah, tarp. Thank you. Good heads up on the tarp there. Machete as well. They are good. Appreciate that. All right, I think we're good now. I don't see any duplicates. Okay, so let's count them up. Water, Swiss Army knife, rope, tarp, medical kit, dog, mirror, knife. That's probably the same thing there. We'll get rid of that one. Mirror, container, machete, flare gun with 2 flares, and the book on plant life. Now, let me count this again. Water, Swiss Army knife, rope, tarp, medical kit, dog, mirror, plastic container, machete, flare gun, book on South Pacific plant life. I don't know if you were counting along with me, but by my count, you guys have identified 11 things that you would like me to get. You've actually identified more because that was just a sampling of the groups. So we have a problem. I told you, I was very clear about this, that I could only go and save 5 items, right? You want me to save 11 items. And I don't know how good your math skills are. I don't know where everybody's at on this, but I will help you and tell you that 11 is greater than 5. And we have a problem. In economics, we call this problem scarcity. You guys want more than we have available. That's how I basically explain it to an elementary student, right? You have to get fancy. Of course, with high schoolers, we use the unlimited wants and limited resources. But here we have a great example that you guys just created, right? Nothing fancy, nothing, you don't have to study this or anything. You just created it. I told you we could save 5 things. You picked 11. 11 is greater than 5. The reason you take this course, the reason economics even exists as a discipline is because 11 is greater than 5. The reason people get PhDs in economics and Nobel Prizes is because 11 is greater than 5. It sounds stupid, but when you say it like that to students, it starts to maybe click a little bit and they're like, yeah. And I can take this problem and apply it to almost anything. But our problem is that we only have 5 spots. So we are going to have to use a word here called allocation. We are going to have to allocate our scarce resources. So allocate means to distribute, divide, figure out how to determine who's going to get what. And in this case, what are our scarce resources? Well, they're me. I'm the scarce resource because I'm the only one who can swim at the moment, given your terrified status and my ability to go back and get things, and I know where they are on the boat. So that's what we're trying to allocate. We're trying to allocate my labor in this case and my time to those 5 things. An alternative way of looking at this would be, you could also say we're trying to allocate the 5 spaces. So we have 5 spaces, you want 11 things. How in the world are we going to allocate those? So in the chat box, I'm going to tell you there are 9 options. There are 9 things we could do to try to allocate the scarce resources. Somebody type in the chat box one thing we could do. What's an option? We could do a lottery. Boom, right out the gate, somebody has chosen lottery. So let's talk about lottery. So if I were to go through and number all these consistently here, so we'll call that 7. I should have created a list on these, and I didn't. That's my fault on that. Should have done that. Whoops. Old plastic container 8. A lottery would indicate that we are going to randomly choose which of these items we want. Goodness. Yeah, I'm not exemplifying the best way to number these guys. So I don't know if you've ever used a website called random.org. I'm going to go there real quick, and we're going to actually do a lottery. Let's do a lottery and see how this works. Random. I know you're seeing like sort of a weird thing. I've got part of my screen shared at the moment, but I'll drag you over here so you can see this a little better. Okay. So one of the things random.org allows me to do is a true random number generator. And if you don't know what true random number means, you can look that up. It's a big thing on the internet. But true random number generator. And I'm going to generate 1 to 11. And basically, all I'm going to do here is whatever number pops up, that's the first thing I'm going to go get. So let's generate it and see what happens. I click generate, and boom, number 1. And just so you know, it doesn't always pop up like that. I'll click it a few more times. So it really does generate. And you can get the same, well, this one's just giving me 1 and 11 a lot. We could have gotten 4, could have gotten 8. So you get the idea, right? And you can put any set of numbers you want in there. Back to my list here. Number 1 was the water. So we are going to put the water on our list. I'm going to highlight that in yellow here so we know that that is something we're actually going to get. Well, I say I am. Let's move that over there. There we go. Now I can get to the water. Boom. All right, so in class, you do this, and you're, change the text color here. In class, you can do this by putting, like you can circle it, you can make another list, which is what I usually do in the classroom, of things that are over to the side. I'm like, here are the 5 things we're going to get. So let's talk about lottery real quick. Lottery, that was also known as random. That is one of our strategies we can use to allocate resources. In the classroom, when you can have a little bit of discussion, I always ask the students, what did you like about that? What was good? What was good about lottery? I'm going to type in an answer there in the chat room. What was a positive? There was no fighting. Okay, yeah. That's what I was waiting for. Somebody type in that word fair. All right, hold on to that thought. We're going to talk about what fair means in a minute, because fair takes on a different meaning depending on its context. Quick, there's a good one. Quick is one of the best things about lotteries. So you put all the numbers in, pull a number out or a name out of a hat or whatever, and you're done, right? As opposed to some of the other options. All right, if I scroll back up the chat box here, somebody said we could do, we could vote. Yeah, vote's awesome in class. So I say, raise your hand if you think the next thing I should get is Swiss Army knife anyway. And you don't usually end up with a majority the first time. So you're like, all right, now we got to vote again because nobody got a majority. Nobody got 50% plus 1. So you go through and you do the voting, and then the students realize that, oh, that's kind of time consuming. That's not maybe the best way to allocate resources. Going back to random, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing here. On random, you want to talk with each of these about pros and cons. So a good thing about random is it's quick. It doesn't prefer one over another. Everybody technically has the same chance, or in this case, every item had the same chance. Bad things about random, though, is it's not guaranteed that it would go to the best, the thing we need most. So for example, it could have randomly picked, number 11. And the first thing I went and got was a book on plant life. And you might not think that's very useful. I always like to ask the students things like, imagine if we randomly allocated medicine, just randomly. Like you walked into the store like, hey, you get insulin today. And you're like, I don't need insulin. Well, it doesn't matter. You randomly got it, right? It would make a lot of sense to allocate medicine that way, or food for that matter. Hey, look at you. You got a bag of peanuts. Well, I'm allergic to peanuts. Well, it doesn't matter. You randomly got them. So random's not the best way to allocate everything. And none of these are. So anyway, you get the idea. I'm spending a little bit too much time on this. Yes, somebody just said somebody might get it that does not need it. That's exactly right. The whole thing that happens over the next 10, 15 minutes in a classroom is you practice some of these, you try some of these out. And in the lesson, there's this handout here that you're seeing on the screen, and it gives you some suggestions. So a student will likely say something like, first come, first serve. That's a good one. That's a great one to do in the classroom. And what I always say is, all right, first come, first serve. First person who gets up and touches the board gets to pick what we get next. And then you can have a great discussion about, well, that's no fair. The kids in the front of the class were a lot closer, so they had an advantage. And I was like, well, it was first come, first serve. If you really wanted it, you could have run faster from the back, or you should have gotten there sooner, or whatever. And the students start to say, that's not the best way to do it either. Sometimes they'll say price. Well, we could do price. Remember, we just landed on this island. The only thing you've got on you is what's in your pockets, right? Does anybody want to pay me to go get something off the boat? And sometimes the kid will say, yeah. And I'll say, how much money do you have on you? $1. All right, well, I've got $1 offer to go get the dog off the boat. Does anybody have anything more? And they start to see the problems with price. The cool thing about this is no matter what you do, there's a good and a bad. There's a pro and a con. Every allocation strategy is good for some people and not good for others. So the one we don't recommend doing in the classroom is force. Yeah, for obvious reasons. Anyway, the one that probably needs the most explanation, and I'll put them here. Here are the 9 that are in the lesson. You might have others. There might be others that are out there. The one that is the hardest in my experience for students and sometimes for teachers to get is this one. Arbitrary characteristic is one method. Under that method, there's limitless characteristics you could pick from. So you could have, for example, the tallest person in the class gets to pick the next item, or the person with the oldest person, or the person with red shoes, or someone with whatever it is. But it's something arbitrary. It's something you just made up. So this could be the highest grade in the class, or it could be who got here first today, or whatever, right? The point is the students will keep throwing that kind of stuff out. So you'll say, all right, we just did arbitrary characteristic. What else could we do? And they'll say, oh, we could do it by whose birthday is the latest. I'm like, well, that's the same thing. That's just a type of characteristic. So make sure you understand that it's just something that's unrelated to the task at hand, but you're just picking it because. So in real life, for example, something like Social Security is allocated by arbitrary characteristics, just an age. We could change the age, right? We have. Some people say we should do it again. So you're just picking a number and you're saying 67. Well, let's make it 68. It's just arbitrary. So sometimes we do things like that in real life as well. Majority rule is a great one to do in class. Like I said, it's voting. Make it take a long time, make it annoying, make it painful, and students will quickly realize why that's not a good way to allocate most resources. This is why we don't use it very often. Question in the chat box says, could arbitrary characteristics also be used for what is taken from the boat, like all the small things? Absolutely. Yep. And I have done that before. I'll say, yeah, I'm just going to go get the smallest item that I can get. Yep. 100%. Okay. So you got that. All that's described in the lesson. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So that for me, this is usually my first day of class in school. When students come into Chris Cannon's economics class, this is like literally day one. This is the first thing we do. I give them the syllabus. I'm like, yeah, it's online. Read it. Well, let's get to something fun. And then homework that night, and I always like, homework on the first night is this sheet here. It's also in the lesson. So after I've introduced the 9 things, some we do in class, some we don't, they fill this in for homework. And basically what they're supposed to do is come up with a good thing, like why you might want to use this strategy, a bad thing, which we put in the disadvantage column, and then a real life example. All 9 of these have real life examples, right? Like price. We allocate most things to price. Who gets donuts? Who's ever willing and able to pay for them? Who gets Ferraris? Whoever's willing and able to pay for them. Who gets, Diet Mountain Dew or whatever I've got here, whoever's willing and able to pay for it. So we allocate a lot of things to price. It's very common in the United States. Majority rule would be voting. So an example of that would be your political seats, right? Political seats are allocated by majority rule. Sometimes popularity contests on TV, like American Idol sort of used to be majority rule. It still sort of is. So that kind of stuff. We don't allocate a lot of things by majority rule. Homecoming queen, king, that kind of thing. Contests, got to win it in something. So somebody in the chat box put, we could arm wrestle. Yeah, that'd be great. Try that in your class if you feel like that's a safe thing to do. I usually do rock, paper, scissors to reduce the physical confrontation, but rock, paper, scissors works just fine. You could do a drawing contest or anything like that. Inga, you get the idea. All right, so in real life, come up with examples. There is an answer key for this in the lesson plan as well. Somebody in the chat box says, may we get a soft copy of this document? Yes, so when you get this link to this PowerPoint, it will have on slide, whatever, it was before we started all this. Slide 7 has this lesson plan, everything you're seeing right here, and that's where all these documents are coming from. So slide 7 has a link to all of this stuff. Okay, so moving on to the second phase here, and this is where you're gonna get a little more involved. So you've now come back, you're in my classroom now on day 2, you've gone home, you've done this homework assignment. We talk about it for a little bit. We talk about kind of goods and bads of all of them, what you came up with as real life examples. And now we're gonna apply this to a real life scenario. All right, let's take it out of the abstract world and let's put it in the hands of something that actually happens to real people. Now, this you may find hits maybe a little too close to home for you. If that's the case, there's a lot of alternate ways to do this. But I like the too close to home personally. My style of teaching, I think it works well. I want them to feel like, hey, this class is real. We talk about real stuff. This is really happening. People are really using this stuff on a daily basis, and let's talk about how. So there are a series of articles linked here. I don't necessarily expect that you would read them all, but there's a great article here from early April of New York having to allocate hospital beds from NPR here. And the thing's called The Economics of Hospital Beds. If you don't follow Planet Money, or if you don't ever check them out, you're missing out on a really cool economics resource. They take sort of, I would say, creative looks into a lot of different topics. So plug there for Planet Money. That's a great article. When you click that link, it will take you to the 21-minute audio version if you want, but it also has the written version right under it, the what do you call it, the script or whatever. So you can just skim through it and read it. Both are good. All of these, I believe, yes, all these are links. So you can click on all these headlines and they will take you to the article that I pulled the headline from. But basically, they are all on variations on a theme here on ventilators. Ventilators, you remember back in April was a big deal when the virus was first ramping up a good bit and we weren't quite ready. Since then, things have changed a little bit and a lot of places have gotten more ventilators or they've figured out better ways to deal with the hospitalization and stuff like that. Anyway, these are some links. If you weren't familiar with that, if you somehow missed all that happening, this might help explain why GCEE would write a lesson about this. That last article down at the bottom right, that's probably the one I would recommend the most out of this, and it's by this medical school who came up with basically a way to allocate ventilators, and the whole thing was they were trying not to leave any group out, so they were trying to be as quote fair as possible. This article I put on its own page because it is the real life version of what the students are about to do. So you might want to wait and show them this after they do the activity. Either way would work. We had a very similar article like this. We used to run this based on the H1N1 vaccine that we had massive shortages of in 2009. And I had a very similar article, and I believe the article was titled, "Who Gets the Last Vaccine?" Even. So this is what you're about to do. You're about to make this decision. Who's going to get the last ventilator? So a little background here. This isn't really needed right now because it's so new, but if you wanted to run this lesson for a few years, 2 or 3 years from now, you want to run this, you might get some students who, are maybe in like 6th, 7th grade now, don't know as much what's going on maybe, or don't understand the severity of it. So there's just a little background there that that you don't need this right now because everybody knows what's going on, but at some point they won't. The problem is the rapid spread of the disease caught some parts of the world off guard without proper testing and diagnostics, I probably should say. A really rapid hospitalization rate and a lot of demand for ventilators, machines that assist with breathing, in case you didn't know what that was. The CDC puts out some guidance, and this is going to be important for the next task here. So based on what we know now, those at high risk for severe illness are those people listed there. It's people 65 years and older. You probably heard about a lot of these, so I'm going to speed up here a little bit to get to the actual activity. Now, here's your task. I have given you all different jobs. You're no longer in the education field. You are the manager of a hospital, and in particular, you are the manager in charge of allocating equipment and resources. You have three ventilators left. And you walk into the hospital in the morning and you get a report and it says there are 9 people currently in your hospital that could need a ventilator by the end of the day. All right, you have 3, not 9, you have 3. So you're gonna have to decide which 3 people should get it. Now, for our simulation purposes and to keep this from getting maybe too real for students, particularly younger students, it does not necessarily mean that if you don't give a ventilator to somebody, they're going to die. So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm killing people. Nah, it's not quite like that. Although, since we're adults here, we know in real life, it was like that in parts of Italy back in early April, and could be like that again, depending on how things get in the fall. But if you want to keep it a little lighter in class, you could just tell them that just because they don't get a ventilator doesn't necessarily mean they're dying. So you're not making necessarily life and death decisions in this simulation. Okay, here's your task. If you would please pull up your other web browser, and I'm going to ask you to head to this website here. It's called socrative.com. Socrative or socrative is probably a better way to say it. Socrative.com. Log in as a student. When you get there, it's going to ask you, are you a student login or a teacher login? Some of you might have logins. Don't use your teacher one. Use a student. And you don't need an account. No account needed. At all. It's going to ask you for a room code, and would you please put in my name? And your question when you get there, I see 8 of you are already in here, so that's good. Your question when you get here is going to ask you, without knowing anything about the people, which strategies would you use as the manager of the hospital to decide who's going to get the ventilators, right? Remember, you got 9 strategies. And go ahead and start answering as soon as you get to the question. 18 of you in, 19 of you in. Good, 4 of you have answered already. Now remember, you don't know anything about the people yet. You know nothing. You just know there are 9 people who need a ventilator. You've got 3. Oh man, how did I do that? I hate it when that happens. There we go. So while you're answering, to speed up things a little bit here, I'm going to keep talking at you for just a second. This website you're using is called Socrative. This question is completely public. So if you like this method of doing this, then you can search for this. I'll put the, right, I think it's already in there. If you have a Socrative account, it's just socrative.com. You create an account, you can search for existing Socratives, or you can input the code for this. It's like a Kahoot, like, somebody gave you their Kahoot code, you could run it. And I like it because I can very quickly see where the room is on something like this by clicking how do we do. If you don't like this, if you're like, nah, I don't want to get another account, I've got enough accounts, enough passwords to remember, then you just simply, you can do hand raising or whatever. What I like about this, personally though, is you can answer this privately because I didn't ask you for your names. So people are just putting in whatever and they don't have to actually raise their hand and identify themselves. That serves a lot of benefits. Oh yeah, I just now noticed in the chat box, I think I clicked away from the thing. Sorry about that. Yeah, if you get to socrative and ask for a room code, it's just my name, Chris Cannon altogether. All right, here we go. Check this out. Everybody look at your screen. You can leave leave the socrative up. Leave the socrative up because I'm going to ask you a second question in just a moment. But when I click how do we do, here's what we see. Now remember, you were supposed to pick 3 answers. So when I hover over this and I see that 23%, that's not 23% of the people picked first come, first serve. That's 23% of the answers, right? So with 40 of you in, that's 120 answers roughly. Does that make sense? So 23% of those answers, one of them at least, was first come, first serve. So basically, hey, the first person in the hospital should get the ventilator. I don't know anything else about that person, but they were here yesterday, they get it. Another one is personal characteristic. Here's where you could have a good discussion in class. This is where we're very limited on the platform I'm using here. But what should those characteristics be? Age? Should it be medical condition? Should it be whatever? Some people pick in price, their ability to pay. 1% of you picked force. Imagine that's one answer. I'm not even sure how you would do that, but that's one of those you can talk to students about that if you think it's a joke answer. Or maybe not. Maybe you should let them duke it out or whatever. Command executive choice is something we didn't talk about earlier, but that is something that did happen in real life. You pick. You're the boss. Like, you got hired to this position. You pick. Hey, you get it. And you don't need any other explanation beyond that. You're just picking because you're the boss. Okay. Now, last part of the task here. Now I'm going to introduce you to the 9 people. All right. So this might change things. So if we go back here real quick and we look at this, your primary choices are first come, first serve, personal characteristic, and command as a group. Not saying you individually, but as a group, those are the ones you guys seem to gravitate towards. Now I'm going to introduce you to the 9 people, and we're going to see if that changes your answer at all. Here are the 9 people that are in the waiting room, or on the list. So take a few minutes here. Normally I would send you to another breakout group, but I've talked too much or something. I don't know how I got off on my time here, but I don't have time to do that. Couple of things keep in mind here as you're looking at the screen. They are in the order they came to the hospital. All right, they're in the order they came to the hospital. So if you think first come, first serve is the best, then Jake, Tyrone, and Monique would get it. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It works like that, okay? Secondly, this is all the information you got. So don't raise your hand and go, Mr. Cannon, what about, I don't know, this is all you got. This is all that's on your notes. If you don't like those notes, you need to hire better hospital staff, because that's all they wrote down for you. So take a minute, read through those, please. And then, if you don't mind, I would like for you to go back to your socrative, and you will see a second question. Hold on, I'm clicking back to the people. There's the people. Read through those for about a minute here. And then if you would go back to that socrative page and select the 3 people you think should get the ventilator. I'll mute myself here and give you just a minute to do that. Again, normally I do this in groups, but we're a little bit short on time. All right, I'm going to click over to the socrative results. All right. And make it to where you can see there's about 27 people have answered. All right. All right, how do we do? Let's see who is going to get. Oh, sorry. So I have it marked as anybody could be a correct answer. Apparently I marked Elena as an incorrect answer. Sorry, I'll fix that. All right, there is your breakdown. So if I was to just go strictly by this, Brooke, and it's tied. Brooke, Tiara, and Elena. Elena just edges out Jake just slightly. All right, so let's look at that. That's really interesting. If we go back to what you said, that it would be command, first come, first serve. I think personal characteristic was the other one that were, well, I could go back and see. Yes, first come, first serve, personal characteristic, and those were our top three without knowing anything about the people. Yep. But then when you did know something about the people, all of a sudden that first come, first serve wasn't maybe as important, right? You could, if you wanted to clean this up a little bit, you could just ask them to pick their one strategy they would use. And that would clean this up a little bit. So if we go back to my list here, I believe it was Brooke, Tiara, and Elena. And in this case, all those are probably based on some kind of personal characteristic. This is where a class discussion is super helpful. You got to have a class discussion here to figure out what was driving those decisions. But my guess, based on the way you guys answered, is this is a lot of personal characteristics or arbitrary characteristics, looking for things like immunocompromised. She's got asthma. We probably used the CDC recommendations, things like that. And there you go. So Jake, even though he was here first and he's willing to pay triple your price, today he's not getting a ventilator. So hopefully he'll make it without one. And that's how it works, right? And that's real life. So I'm cutting this very short. This should be a very full and rich discussion where you go back and reference your characteristics. What if we change this? What if instead of ventilators, we made it donuts? Then it should be very different, right? What if we made it lockers at the high school? Who should get those? It'd probably be different. What if we made it tickets at the movie theater? Doesn't matter what it is. We have to have a way to allocate it. There's pros and cons to both, but here's a real life situation where people actually had to do this. And now is when you could, if you wanted to, go and show them, some of these articles where, guys, I wasn't making this up. Like people actually had to decide this in real life this year, just a few months ago. And who knows, hopefully we won't, but this could happen again come later on in the fall. So you conclude the lesson with who would have gotten the ventilators with the strategies versus when people were involved. So this is just an exercise in comparing theory to when you put the human element into it. I've got a couple of interesting links to South Carolina-based things here. This first article you see here was May 20th, so about a month ago. Charleston, there was a big shipment of ventilators out of the United States to Russia because they need them more right now. Your students might question that. Like, what are we doing? We're sending these scarce ventilators off to Russia. That doesn't seem like that's a super helpful. And then two articles here that I found from the South Carolina Hospital Association. One is this just general list of COVID-19 updates. And on there's some things about allocating tests and how they might allocate vaccines when they're available. That would be an interesting lesson because chances are there's going to be a shortage of those when they first arrive here. And then I thought this was interesting. I also got this from the South Carolina Hospital Association. It's related to testing. And it is, look, it's high priority, low priority. It's exactly what we just did. It's exactly what we just did, except instead of ventilators, these are the tests. So who should get access to the scarce test? Turns out not everybody gets equal access. So even a group like the Hospital Association has high priority, low priority things for that. If you don't like this, you're like, I don't know, that's too close to home. I don't want to get into all that. There's a whole bunch of historical examples. There's a price war going on for just medical supplies in general right now. There's a great World War II example of how do you get penicillin out to people, and it turns out soldiers would get penicillin before civilians, so that's another same kind of thing we're dealing with here, and so on and so forth. So we're about 4 minutes over what I said I was going to, but I'm going to turn things back over to Chandler.
The thing anymore. No, I can't hear. It's.
What happened? Oh, sorry. Is that to me? Okay. All right, Chandler, you want to take back over hosting?
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Chris. This is a great lesson. I love how you were able to convert it to where it was, super acceptable in a virtual environment. I know there's a lot of unknown, so it's always good to know that. I think most of us knows that this will work really great in a classroom, but I think it works really well virtually well. So thank you so much. All right, guys, I am linking in the evaluation form in the chat box. So if you go to the chat box, you'll see where I have linked in the evaluation form. If you will take a few minutes to fill this out, this is what we will use. Your attendance in the Zoom plus your evaluation is what we use to give you credit for each of the webinars that you attend. And remember, if you're a South Carolina teacher and you attend 5 or more webinars with us this summer, you're eligible to receive $100. And how we do that again is by your attendance today in Zoom and you filling out the evaluation form. I know these evaluations are gonna be great, Chris, so I'll be happy to share them with you. But thank you again so much. I'll hang out for a little while. Oh, I got a link not working. Let me copy it again. I had that issue last time too. Let's see, copy. Try that one. Oh, I sent that, hold on. Try this one. Let's see if you guys can get on that one.
Yep. Boom. That worked. And the first one was missing the 6.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I am not going to post it anymore. The last one that went up, we know it works. So if you guys will take a few minutes to fill that out, as soon as you have filled that out, you are good to go. So you can go ahead and dismiss yourself. Thank you again for being with us. We really appreciate it. Chris, thank you for your time. Thank you for making it South Carolina relevant. I think that's fantastic. We really appreciate that. I'll hang around if you guys have any questions about upcoming webinars or anything else related. But thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate it. Chris took time out of his vacation to be with us. So we really
Sure, that was fun. No problem. Yeah.
Yeah.